School is officially back in session. So remember, kids, while standing at the bus stop, stay on the sidewalk or someplace out of the way of traffic. And drivers, you may need to leave your house a little earlier to stop for those stop school buses. Hey, watch out!
Oh, come on. I'm running late for work.
Hey, pull over. You could almost cause an accident, or worse yet, hit a kid running late for the bus stop. So take this as a lesson. If you pass a bus with its flashers on and stop sign out, you'll get pulled over and could lose your license.
Well, I'm glad no one got hurt. Unfortunately, I just lost my license for a while.
And that's your tip of the day from Sergeant BC.
Subscribe now.
He is a son, a father, a brother, a law officer, an accomplished officer.
And 4 over and out.
Now.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Thank you guys for tuning in. For most of you, you guys know that this is a transition from the lab where we interviewed individuals with business products and positive messages. Now we've transitioned to Black and Blue, where we highlight police officers in the United States of America who are rookies, who are seasoned, and who are retired. And we have a tremendous show ahead of you today. And thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to get into it. Some of you may know him, others of you may not, but I'll introduce him here in a minute. Right now, I am Coach Clee. I'm your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker. And those of you that I see the Facebook 2 streams, something is going on with Facebook where it's not. There's an error message showing up, so I apologize. Hopefully it'll get corrected. If not, we'll upload it to Facebook once we're done. But I see we're streaming on 2 pages on YouTube right now, and we're streaming on LinkedIn. So we're still going to give you a very colorful, fun, and very informative show that's ahead of you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, this is Black and Blue, and we got a couple sponsors out there. You see them in the comments section. First and foremost, MG4 Tech, Merrick Green. Any of your online needs, if you're looking to do any kind of podcasting, anything online for a website, he's the guy that you need to contact. Don't do it right now, but when this live is over, make sure you check him out. His website's in the comments section. Also, One Way Publishing is a sponsor for this too. One Way Publishing is a book publishing company where their motto is they can turn a mere thought into a book that's bought. And I think it's you see the books behind me, all One Way Publishing. There's a couple of few clients out there, all One Way Publishing. Sergeant Be Safe, One Way Publishing, and they make sure that we can get it done. Sergeant Be Safe says it best. Stay tuned right here. He's going to let you know. Hi, I'm Sergeant Be Safe. One Way Publishing is the sponsor for the podcast Black and Blue. And these books behind me are a few of the books that are on their website. Check out the latest one, The Lab Part 2. It just came out. It's a compilation of former guests that were on the show. But make sure you tune into the podcast. That way you can see cartoons of me giving out safety tips on how you can be safe. See for yourself. Go to the website, workwithclee.com.
Subscribe now.
And we'll be seeing more of Sergeant Be Safe during this podcast. If you have any information or you want to reach out to One Way Publishing, the website is in the comments section. If you're looking to have a book published, they're the ones to reach out to. If you're looking to be on this platform, they're the ones to reach out to as well. All right. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm not going to monopolize your time any further. We have Roger Collins II backstage, ladies and gentlemen. He is a commander. He is a supervisor. He's a training and developing officer. He is a community engagement consultant, and he's also a professional keynote speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I am excited to meet and bring to the stage Roger Collins. Roger, are you here?
I am.
Perfect.
How's everybody doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of upset. You already know about the camera. We talked about that a little bit. And then Facebook isn't letting us be great, but we're going to go ahead and have a good time anyway. Roger, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Coming off a shift. What better way to end my day than to be with Coach Clee and talk about some police work?
Absolutely. I like it. I can feel the excitement. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, some of that is on the wall behind me. So I'm from Steubenville, Ohio, a small town in Ohio, close to Pittsburgh, where I'm the son of a minister and the son of a cop.
Okay.
My dad's a retired police officer, and my uncle's a retired police officer. So I kind of got into the family business. So behind me, you'll see my uniform, you'll see my uncle's to over this shoulder and another family member over this shoulder. We're a police family, and so kind of pushed me into that profession. I'm a 11-year veteran of a large agency in the state of Kentucky.
Okay.
There, I'm also a college professor from my hometown. Shout out to the Eastern Gateway Community College Gators. So I've been teaching for 2 years, policing for 11, and I'm a father of 3 beautiful kids and a husband to a labor and delivery nurse who's awesome. So now I'm just enjoying life and love talking about policing, community policing, leadership, and recruitment.
Absolutely. We're going to jump all into that. I appreciate that. It sounds like you got a lot of wonderful things going for you, and I appreciate you making time for the podcast coming right out of work. Can you tell us a little bit about what some of your responsibilities and duties are currently?
Yeah, currently I am a platoon sergeant, a platoon commander. So
Okay.
I'm in charge of, on any given day, 10 to 15 officers in a patrol sector. I distribute, daily tasks on areas of concentration for crime, and just trying to focus on making the city that we work for a lot better each and every day.
Gotcha. And I want to kind of take a step back. I know you said you're the offspring of a minister and another, your second generation police officer, third generation. What actually got you into police work itself? Was it watching your family, your father, go to work and come home in the stories, or did you have a burning desire from a young age?
I had the burning desire from a young age, but that desire came when my father became a police officer.
Okay.
So my father became a police officer, and then also my uncle, who's another huge part of my life. He is retired after 30 years of service in North Carolina.
Okay.
So I love policing, and quite frankly, growing up in my city, I think there was one person of color that was on our police department. So it was very intriguing to notice I have a large amount of people of color in my family as a police that came in policing. So that was another thing that sparked my interest.
Gotcha. And I see Michael Glover and Deborah Glover. They're giving you a couple shout outs on here. Shout out to them.
Yeah, that's my family. That's my people. Their sister-in-law is another law enforcement commander in my family. We're just blessed. We are truly blessed with a servant family. You can only see 3 of the uniforms here, but if I scan over, you'll see there's several others in the family that chose to do this. And I'm also missing 2 that I haven't framed up, but it's the way to honor my family for one, leading me into this profession, and just being great servants to people.
I like that. I like the framing of the uniforms and making it a mural. That's a great idea. I don't have as many law enforcement officials. I have my father was a police officer. My brother-in-law is a police officer currently. So coming from a second generation as well, I can understand the prestige and the honor that you have for it.
Absolutely.
So like you said, I'm pretty sure your father and your uncle and your family were mentors. Are there other mentors that help influence you to become the person that you are today? And if so, would you like to give them a shout out? And how did they help bring you and nurture you up until this level?
Wow, there's several. Of course, my dad and my uncle planted that seed and pushed me in that direction. And then once I got into the profession, I interned with the U.S. Marshals in the Middle District of North Carolina. And there was what was he? I think it was the chief deputy. He was just he pushed me, he challenged me. And that's, I think, what pushed me into going into leadership in law enforcement. When I finally got on my police department here, most of my mentors have been Black females who saw my passion, saw my drive, and pushed me. And then, in law enforcement, we create families. Another one of my mentors is also my kid's godfather. He was a huge impact on how I do policing, how I approach leadership. So, there's so many to name, so many names.
Gotcha. And your influence, like you said, I know you said you watched last week's show with Barbara Thomas, and she was very inspirational to other officers as well. She was an academy instructor, and like you said, another Black female to kind of push other people forward. She has since retired out of police work and is living a totally separate life. But kudos to everyone who pushes along and keeps the cycle going. Because this isn't always an easy job to do. And someday there's good days and there's a lot of rough days.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your leadership style and what leadership means to you.
So my leadership style is I like to have a situational leadership. You never know, and this will lead into the mental health side of your officers. You never know what a person is going through as their boss. So mine is very simple, is our officers are our biggest tool. There's no other tool on the police department that we have. So it's strange that we you know, you have your patrol car, right? And if you don't get the oil change and it blows up, you'll get a letter in your file. You'll get a rip for not taking care of your car. Commanders need to get a rip for not taking care of their officers.
Wow.
And that's also focusing on every aspect of that officer, focusing on his or her home life. How are you supporting them? What type of quality of life at work do you provide to your officers? You're going out and you're asking them to provide a great quality of life to the citizens of their community. And so as a commander, your job is to provide a great work quality of life for them. And that will make dividends when it comes to how they police in the community. So it's very situational. One officer A might need something different than officer B. But the biggest thing is being in tune to what your officers need, and also understanding that, you know, their number one priority is their family.
Right.
We all love policing. So how can you as a commander understand that, nurture that, and make sure that they take care of their number one priority? Because then now you become number two if you do it right. So that's kind of my leadership style. I don't think it really has a name to it, but just take care of your biggest asset, which is your officers.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like that. How do you get to know each individual officer? I know you said you have under your command are about 10 officers. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I know that's just like being a coach on a team. You have 10 officers, 10 people out running the field, 10 different personalities, 10 different styles. How do you get to know each and every one? And how do you know what their ticks are, what things that their hiccups are, and things to motivate them and things to keep them going?
I like to call these the what do I call them? They're the layups of leadership. It's the simple stuff. I think sometimes we make it so difficult that becomes convoluted and we can't do it. So those simple things are when they're walking in the door, you stand up out of your seat and you walk to them and ask them how their day is going. When they walk past all the commanders, you be the commander that goes over and say, man, how are you doing? Taking time in understanding your people, interacting with your people. I'll give you an example today. One of my officers, his son and his son love hunting. So I knew hunting season was coming up. And so I said, man, I remember it from last year because I remember he asked for time off to spend time with his son to go hunting. And that's one thing that I say is, and we have the people to do it, you going hunting with your son. Because at the end of the time, once you retire, I'm not going to be sitting in your living room. It's going to be your son. It's going to be your wife. It's going to be your family. So I, as a commander, have to make them a priority to you. So today I said, man, how's your son doing hunting season? He said, man, Sarge, he just got a 10-point buck with a bow. And he showed me the video of his son, and his son would just, it's so funny. His son's reaction to killing this 10-point buck was, I smoked him. And he was so excited. But I also seen the smile on my officer's face when his commander knew something special about his child. That is what makes it special as a leader. And that's in any field. You need to know your people, know what's important to them.
Absolutely. That's a good example. That's stepping, getting outside of the job itself and making it very personal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We got a message from Sergeant Be Safe, and we're going to come right back.
Ooh, and you fool! As we all enter this holiday season, be mindful and vigilant that this is when scammers And thieves like to take full advantage of us. It's more than just ghosts and goblins out there. There's real live monsters like Rob You Blind and Chance Wilder, ready to hurt and take advantage of kids and adults alike. Kids and parents, be mindful while out trick-or-treating, and don't accept candy from strangers. There's a lot of things out there that may look like good candy that's actually very poisonous for you. So let's be safe and only go to places that you know, and be accompanied by an adult that you trust. And that's your Halloween tip of the day to get you on your way. Ooh.
Subscribe now.
All right, and that was Sergeant Be Safe. I hope you like the holiday commentary, the Halloween commentary. We got more coming. There's another cartoon in the works, and there's another video in the works. So you guys make sure you tune into the channel, tag, like, and share. If you want to be a voiceover, reach out to workwithclee.com on the website, in the comments listed below, and we can make sure we get that done. But without further ado, we're going to jump back into this interview. Roger, you still here?
I am.
Perfect. Roger, I know we talked about leadership and your leadership styles with the men or the officers that you watch over. Have you seen a rise in mental illnesses, or mental health calls, or crises while dealing with the public? And if so, what kind of challenges do you think we as police officers should take to try and counteract a lot of these situations?
Yeah, we have seen a huge rise in mental health calls for service.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to being a police officer, I was what they would call a qualified mental health specialist.
Okay,
I predominantly work with juveniles in the Akron Public School District, juveniles that have oppositional defiance disorder, PTSD, different situations like that. So what we're seeing is an increase of our homeless, our houseless population suffering from mental illness. It's going to increase as the weather gets cold. And yes, we saw a huge increase. I think the fix is something that I think departments across the globe are working on. Of course, we've had the American Rescue Plan funds that's been sent to police departments or cities across the globe, and they're taking advantage of that. Elected officials are really focusing in and using that money wisely and focusing in on things like mental health. So something in my department that we piloted was the diversion. So we'll get a call from we call them consumers in our city who are suffering from a mental health crisis, and we'll gauge if the police needs to go or if the police would go as a secondary only to be safe with a mental health specialist to assist that person. I think a lot of times, and you hear our community say this, we don't want to be over-policed.
Yeah.
And what that means to me is not using police as the hammer. Sometimes we need a screwdriver,
I like that.
But after 5 o'clock, all we have is a hammer because we're the only ones working 24/7.
Exactly.
And so what happens is police departments become the hammer after 5. So these programs like diversion programs are very helpful. I just caution police leaders, police chiefs, and elected officials that you also have to be mindful that when someone's going through a crisis, you really have to gauge that. Because we also don't want to take our mental health specialists and put them in a position where they can be hurt or harmed.
Right.
Because then that's when law enforcement is needed anytime someone's life is threatened or bodily harm is created. So it turns out great. It helps the community's request to not be over policed, but it also gives the person the services that they need to make them back to a functioning member of society and really treat their illness.
Exactly. And I think that's the ultimate goal is to treat the illness and get the person back into a functioning working capacity to where they can feel normal and move on and be a productive person in their own life and capacities.
Absolutely.
So have you seen what are your challenges in dealing with fellow officers on the job? If we see an incident, we see a bad car crash, a bad shooting where you're working a night shift and it's call after call after call, domestic after or child endangerment after a bad accident, and so on and so on and so forth. And that officer may be suffering from feelings of depression or things along those lines, or their coping mechanism may be to just go home and chug some bourbon itself, and that in itself becomes a repetitive cycle. How do you identify situations like that, and how would you counteract that?
So the biggest thing is those are greatly prevented by good supervisors. And I even hate to say supervisors. Those are prevented by great leaders.
Okay.
Because we talked about early knowing your people.
Mm-hmm.
If I see, let's just take, for instance, the officer I spoke about early, come in and I talk to him about his son and deer hunting, and I don't get that same response, okay, my spidey senses are up.
Right.
So I might talk about another subject that I know he usually responds to. And if I start to see a pattern, that's something that as a leader, I'm going to monitor. It goes back to the patrol car, and this is where I really think supervisors should be held accountable, is if I'm going to write an officer up as a commander for not taking care of a patrol car, my lieutenants and my majors should be able to write me up if I'm not taking care of that officer. So that means knowing that, hey, there's something going on. I need to identify that. And you can't identify anything if you're not interacting and having a relationship with your people. One of the things that I think we're doing here locally is we started an officer wellness program.
Okay.
So while that's a huge help, we also have a great a peer support group. The commander who just left that group for our department was phenomenal. That was her passion.
Gotcha.
When I say she was phenomenal, she was phenomenal. That was her passion. And that's what I love. I love seeing people in their passion, because you get the best results. And then you get that officer or that commander that just loves what they're doing. And I think those are good, but nothing beats a great leader who is monitoring his officer. I think the second part of that is prevention. So you think about, and I had this conversation with an officer recently. Think about when you were a brand new rookie, right? And you're on the shooting scene, and that senior officer is like, man, you want to go to the shooting scene? Let's go. So you have everybody in this scene that doesn't need to be in the scene probably. Right. And then you're taking this officer, and sometimes it's even more senior, seasoned officers, and you're putting trauma in that officer's mind when he doesn't need to. You're adding him to a scene that he doesn't need to be added to. And then you're also putting an image in his mind that he doesn't need. Now, as police, we have to respond to very critical incidents. So there's some we cannot avoid.
Right.
But the ones that we don't have a responsibility to be, and if we go, we're in the way, why would we intentionally do that? But it goes back to the old school mentality of policing. Tough. How has that warped the mind of some of our officers by doing that? There's training value from that. Don't get me wrong. But there is some value, there is some devalue when you intentionally force those images on an officer. So how can we prevent that as commanders? One thing that I say is there was a very bad car accident on the highway. So of course I go to the scene to command the scene. Where the car accident happened, it was secure. There was no need at all for me to go up there.
Right.
And officer's like, hey, did you go up there? I was like, nope. There's no point for me to go up there. There we go. We froze for a second.
Yeah. I was just about.
As a commander, I have to look at that and make sure that that's important when I look at my officers. Like, if he doesn't need to go up there, there's no point of sending him up there or her up there.
Gotcha. So with incidents that are going on, I know, like we talk about on this platform often, police work and police officers are very cyclic in the United States of America. There's many times where quite lately we've been at the very bottom of the totem pole, and it seems like where everyone hates us and we're the worst thing in society. And then there, most times we hang out somewhere in the middle where it's nice to be around. When we're needed, it's good, but out of sight, out of mind. That's normally where we hang out in the middle portion. And other times, we're at the very top when everyone loves us and we can't do anything wrong. And hey, thank you for your service, and you guys are great, and all those other things. So it's very cyclic. In 21st century policing, what kind of challenges do you think law enforcement officers face with the public, and the public citizens face with law enforcement officers, vice versa?
So I'll go back. I want to touch back on part of that mental health. So you think in 2020 there was a lot of civil unrest in cities across this country.
It was.
So I also think about the way, in particular, a lot of officers went through had mental breakdowns. That time was rough. And just to be frank, it was pretty rough for police officers of color.
Right.
It felt like you were in the middle of this battle. So I think it's important to look at, have some type of focus in that area when you look at your officers of color, and focus on how they responded to 2 years ago, because that still plays a part in some officers and how they interact and patrol, or they just quit. They just quit policing altogether. But some challenges, to answer your question, some challenges is something that my chief says very often, and I 100% agree with her. Policing has to rebrand itself. We absolutely have to rebrand ourselves.
Yeah.
And what does that look like, right? We have the history of policing and how law enforcement came about. And then you have what the civil unrest that some people, connected to the history of law enforcement. So we have to really go back and really rebrand our stuff. And the challenge is, recruiting is a big challenge. And so the challenges we get is to not be hit with this broad brush. I am not even close to Derek Chauvin. But a lot of times we're putting this broad brush of police.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, it's no different when it comes to citizens. Sometimes officers can paint citizens with this broad brush. We had civil unrest in my town, and some of the people who were protesting were people I know. Were my neighbors.
Yeah.
My former neighbor was a protester, and we've had great discussions. She's an awesome lady, and she had frustrations that, quite frankly, she talked to me about, but she didn't feel comfortable talking to everybody about.
I understand.
So it's not painting this broad brush and not assuming that we can't, that it has to be one or the other. You have to, support police or not support police. Listen to citizens or listen to police. There's no one over the other.
Right.
And we will only be able to get policing back to where it needs to be, or to where it needs to be, by working together.
I like that, and we'll jump into community policing here in a moment. But I like how you discuss rebranding, because everything, even Coca-Cola, not to put names out there, does go through some sort of rebranding. You have to repackage the same product and distribute it a different way and reissue it to a new generation of individuals that see society very differently, but you still have to keep peace and order. Like you said, during the protests that turned to riots that were 2 years ago, I remember I was front line on a very chaotic day. I was working a weekend day shift, and I got called to go down to the Capitol to go stand, and it was very chaotic because the protest did turn into a chaotic riot. A lot of faces. I'm like, I knew these people, and it wasn't a fun day. It was a violent day. It was very stressful. It was very hot. It was like the perfect storm, and you're standing there and so many things happen. I discussed it on this platform before. I don't want to revisit all of it. But just understanding that the aftermath of all that, you do feel like a man without an island, or a man without a country sometimes, a man on an island, because you don't have too many people that can relate to you on both ends of the spectrum, and you're just kind of isolated right there and have to take in all those issues, all those problems, and then I had to find my own release. My release is mainly the platform, writing books, and finding other topics that are away from law enforcement. But there's others that I just know that, like you said, become very angry, become very bitter, that just kind of disassociate themselves with anything and are just going through the motions.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. So what's your take on community policing, like you were kind of leading into? I know that a lot of communities discuss that the police officers need to get out in the community often. And in my department, and a lot of departments where I interview individuals on this platform, we do National Night Out. We do Coffee with the Cop. We do Cop with the Shop for around Christmas time. We get out in the high schools during day shift. And we get out at the local parks and play basketball and football. And it's happening. Police officers have always been interactive from my point of view. Not everyone sees it because everyone sees the negative things that the media puts out. But in reality, we're ground level almost all the time. What's your take and what's your view on community policing?
Yeah. My view on community policing, and some may like it, some may not, is we have commercialized community policing so much. We've commercialized it. It is now the buzzword for politicians. It's the buzzword for everything. And I'll give what I think a synonym of community policing is, and then I'll explain why. Community policing and beat integrity are the same thing.
Wow.
So when you go back and think, like, look at National Night Out. National Night Out was a great event. Don't get me wrong. I participated. I planned National Night Out. I was a former commander of my department's community policing unit. So these events are awesome. It's a great way to get in the community. But I think it's more so become a PR more than it is community policing. While you are having that community interaction, you're not really building sustainable relationships. And that's what community policing is. Community policing isn't the officer who takes a picture with a kid and hands them a teddy bear. Community policing is actually working and riding your beat and working in partnership with the community to fight crime. It's actually a policing strategy. So I think it's got so commercialized that people only grasp on to those things that hashtag community policing. So those pictures. And don't get me wrong, I do it as well. When I go out in the community, if a person wants to take a picture of me, I always oblige them. They always take a picture of me. But what I'm also doing is reaching back out. So what I caution departments on, or I like departments to look at when I speak to them, is if you go back on your social media and you have a picture of your officer with somebody in the neighborhood that he patrols, go back to your officer a month later and ask him how many interactions has he or she had with that same person. Once they continuously have that interaction and build that relationship, that's true community policing. Right. These one-overs are not. Are you still interacting with your community? Absolutely. But is it the true thing of community policing? I don't think it is. And sometimes it can be almost insulting to some communities. It's a term that I talk about a lot, and it's called poverty pimping.
I like that.
It's when people go into a community and they take a picture of them giving something to somebody, and the picture is more so, the give is more so for the picture and not for the help. So it goes back to something I love saying. I posted on LinkedIn several times. I can't take credit for it. I don't know where I got it from, but how do you find out if you're doing community policing correct? Are you doing it for attention? Or are you doing it with intention? And that's the difference. So are you doing it for your personal attention, or are you doing it with the intention to build a relationship as a commander or as a police officer with the community? And I think that's the key point you need to ask yourself as policing leaders, as officers. What are you doing this for?
Gotcha. I like that. And that reminds me of, like, you would always see around election time, elected officials would go to certain rec centers, they would go to certain churches, they would show up at certain locales that you would never see them any other time until it's a couple months before a major election, and you would be doing the same type of deal. You're showing up for the PR rep, as opposed to those who you actually see, you know their first names. I know a lot of officers with my department. They know us by first name. I know a lot of people by first name. I know their picture. I know where they live. I know their mom, their dad, their kids. And so you can know their lineage, you know their history, and you can, oh yeah, that's such and such. They live on, may not know the exact address, but I know the house. I can take you to their house and have a conversation with them. And that means more to someone that you're showing up and they're like, hey, Clee, I know I messed up, as opposed to, hey, officer so-and-so. And you can have a one-on-one conversation, and it means so much more to the community.
Yeah, and there's small things that commanders can do to help their officers get in that pattern, such as report follow-ups. You take a report for a theft out of a vehicle, or you take a report for a break-in, go back to that victim's house and check with them. Man, I was here 2 days ago on your break-in. I wanted to check to see how you were doing. Was there any new information? Here's my card. One thing that I'm working on in my division is I want all my officers to have business cards, every last one of them. That is a personal way of you connecting with the member. All of the officers on our department gave all of our officers cell phones. Putting your cell phone there. Now, of course, your officer has to create boundaries. Shutting that phone off when he's off. Or he or she shutting that phone off when they're off. But those are intentional, small things you can do. And we use the term attitude reflects leadership. How your people see you interact with people will be how they interact. And how you interact with them will be how they interact with people. So if you walk past the hall, past one of your officers, and don't say a word to them, what do you think they're going to do when they walk in the gas station and a customer or a citizen walks past them and they make eye contact? They're not going to say anything.
Exactly.
My sergeant, my lieutenant just walked past me. So building those relationships are very small things. That's the thing I've been working on it for about 6 months, is trying to get, we have a large department. So I'm trying to get all of my officers business cards to where they can actually hand them out. Currently, only commanders and detectives and specialty units get business cards. Okay. So it's just those little things that can go a long way when you're handing out that business card, and it's personal. And you got to make those relationships.
I know I took a sales course many moons ago, a lifetime ago, but it's very applicable in this profession because they said fortune's in the follow-up. And it's basically what you're saying is following back up a day later, 2 days later. Hey, how are you? Did anything change? I just want to let you know I'm still here. If you have any questions, feel free. And that second interaction is the interaction for sales, is where you normally make or break a sale. For police work, that's where you didn't just show up because I dialed 911. Like, you're following up. I didn't call you and you're coming back. Okay, that's the one that hits home.
Yeah, it's so funny. That's a business model that I've always lived by, and just a networking model. You always follow up with somebody within 48 hours. That's always been my go-to, is within 48 hours. But yes, you're absolutely right. And how far does that go? So when there's a critical incident in a neighborhood or in an area, you've built a relationship with them, they're going to be like, oh, there goes Officer Clee. This is my son, Destin, who decided to jump in the podcast. Say hi, Destin.
Hi.
How you doing?
So when you go in those neighborhoods and you've invested time, I'm not saying you just given one Christmas event, but you invested critical time in those areas that you patrol, they'll be like, no, I want Sergeant Collins, or I want Sergeant Clee. I want them here. I trust them. And now what you do is you spread that to all your officers. Make them have beat pride, not just on the shootings and the robberies, but make them have it on the quality of life calls. Make them have it on the juvenile who keep skipping school. Make that another priority. And once you do that, man, the sky's the limit when it comes to your department for community policing as a whole.
Yep, absolutely. You touched on a lot. So let me ask you this. What are your individual goals as far as law enforcement for the next 3 to 5 years? Or what's your what do you see your department going with in the next 3 to 5 years?
As you know, departments across this country are ever changing.
It's a loaded question, isn't it?
Yeah, very loaded. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I would love to eventually go. I would love to eventually go up in rank and really focus on implementing community policing at a department level, whether that's at the department that I'm at currently or at another department later in the future. My goal is to help my officers, first of all, hit their goals.
Right.
And then also influence them. I want to create leaders that have the mindset of building that relationship. So in 3 to 5 years, I would love to see, like a sergeant's test just came out, and I have several officers that are interested in it. So I recently just took the lieutenant's test. And so I still have some of that material. So I'll be making, well, I've already made it, online tests that I can send them on their phone.
Nice.
So my goal is to see officers under my command flourish and prosper in what they want to go into. Leaders create leaders.
Yes, they do.
And the only way that I will be successful is if the people under my command are successful. That's where my goal lies in 3 to 5 years. In 5 years, I'll still have about 9 to 10 more years to go. So I have plenty more to do in 9 years.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you'll be effective. When in those 3 to 5 years, when you have 9 years left, you'll still be effective and still be making a positive difference.
Yes, sir. I pray that that's the case.
So we come to with, like I said, the law enforcement is very cyclic. For the longest time, most of my career up until the beer virus hit, we were getting floods and floods of applicants during the hiring process. Just to put out a rough number, let's just say 500 applicants, and then we're only hiring for maybe 5 positions. And so you have the pick of the litter. Now, for rough numbers, again, these numbers aren't accurate for anyone because I know someone's going to come at me. Let's just say we're getting 10 applicants and we have 9 available spaces. So now you're basically getting who's available. As far as recruiting, as far as finding applicants, as far as retention, what is your suggestion on those challenges that we face across the nation in this profession?
Man, Clee, I think it all goes back to leadership. It all goes back to leadership. A department's biggest recruiters are its officers. So if you're in a department where your leadership may be lacking or you don't feel supported, that's the story that's going to be told to people who are thinking about this career. So leadership is critical, important. Something that I think is kind of like the big elephant in the room in law enforcement that's being talked about in corporate sectors, but not in law enforcement, is the quiet quitting. Have you heard this term before?
Yes, I have. It's very common.
So law enforcement is seeing some of that very same thing of quiet quitting. And for listeners who aren't familiar with quiet quitting, is essentially the term of people acting, the term they use, acting their wage. If they get off at 5 o'clock, they're done at 5 o'clock. And what it is for law enforcement is transition to a lack of proactivity, a lack of communication. If you don't get a call for service, officers are really not effectively going out patrol. And I think that's twofold. It's the civil unrest we just came out of, and it's also leadership. How are you honoring your people? Do they feel valued? Do they feel like what they do on a daily basis matters? Those key things are extremely important. So when it comes to recruiting, you got to sweep your own porch first. Let's make sure that the people on your department, first of all, are being the best recruiters out there for you. And then once you do that, I think you start going after people who are just good people and people who want to be servants to the citizens of this community. And my biggest thing is critical thinkers. How can you solve this problem? You know, I tell people, my retired guys, I'm trying to help some of my retired guys with their LinkedIn. And they was like, man, I've been to police for 25 years. I said, yes, but you've been a critical thinker and a problem solver for 25 years. I said, you have to figure out how to get a knife-wielding CIT person out of the middle of the road in a highway and try to do it in less than an hour before after highway traffic comes.
Rush hour,
right?
yes.
Where rush hour traffic comes, yeah. So you're put in the office and you're given a problem. That problem, which is a life-threatening, you did it in an hour. This problem, they're giving you 6 months. So you are very skilled to do this job, you know? And it's really reaching into those officers and finding those key things and letting them know that. I think going after, and I hate snatching people from different careers, but going after social workers who are in a line that they have to show empathy. Which is a thing that officers need. It's a powerful tool that officers need now. Going for people who are caretakers, foster parents, coaches, teachers, who want to truly make a difference. I have this conversation with officers a lot. There are 2 units right now in every law enforcement agency that are most important. That's patrol and recruitment. Recruitment is the most important, one of the most important units on every police department nationwide, because it's the most important thing that all departments need to do right now. The ARP money, it has helped departments add incentives, signing bonuses, and moving expenses. And here locally at our department, we have seen an increase of applicants based on the pay raise that we just received. So also paying people, there's no amount of money you can pay somebody to put their life on the line, but at least pay something that can catch their attention, you know? And we recently have done that. We recently have hired retirees and had them come back. So we've done a very, very strategic way of recruiting. So I think that's so critically important, is that recruitment gets the attention and the boost that they need. That's literally the most important unit on the police department right now.
Interesting. I like that. I know how what you said about bringing back retirees. I know a lot of people, a lot of officers, especially during 2020, were looking to get out of this profession quickly and very rapidly. And in the process of getting out, they may have moved on with their life, but to actually know they were good officers and to come back and actually be effective now, especially during this drought, it's a welcoming feeling, especially to those that kind of just hit the wall. But
and I would be remiss not to mention the importance of law enforcement leaders working on their diversity internally for their department. And you know, as we look at civil unrest, we look at things that's happening nationwide. While this should have been a priority before, and if you haven't noticed, citizens are telling you this is a priority. Does your department reflect the citizens that live in your area? And part of some of the education that I've worked on is I went through diversity and inclusion training through Cornell University, which is an awesome program. And I'm not a paid spokesperson, but I'm telling you the program is awesome. But learning where, as a police department, where you start, and that starts in your training. when you look at, is all of your officers getting the opportunity to do the same training? So if an officer wants to get promoted, and during the promotion process, you have to do scenarios, like a tactical scenario. So part of that promotion process, you have to know these things, or you have to do an investigative scenario a tactical scenario that involves investigation. Well, if you've never had the ability to go to investigative class, there's someone that has a step above you.
Right.
So it's really is training distributed equitably so that everybody has a fair chance to be promoted or to get into a specialty unit to prepare them for the next step in their career. And when I say equitably, that means to everybody. So I think it's really important and really hitting diverse areas. Don't be afraid to go to your HBCU institutions. Don't be afraid to go to your military personnel. Don't be afraid to go to the women's club in your city. Don't be afraid to reach out to your LGBTQ community groups and say, hey, we want a diverse police department. We want to speak to your group about how we can do that. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention the importance of that when it comes to recruitment. That is extremely important. Our community's asking for it.
Gotcha. And as you brought up, different organizations, as in college, military, social groups, and things along those lines. A lot of younger adults that are in those of course, college age kids, or college age adults, adults that have recently joined the military and are soon to be getting out or part of civic groups. They have a lot of questions. They want to know what entails with law enforcement, what skills that they should already possess if they want to start applying, what courses they should take, what departments they should go apply for, where they should live, dynamics like that. If someone came up to you, a college kid, military kid, college adult, military adult, sorry, I got to correct myself. They'll get me later. They came up to you and hypothetically asked you that question. What kind of advice would you give them?
I would say the first thing is to do your research. My mom would say this as a pastor. She would say, "In all thy getting, get understanding." So do your research and get an understanding of what law enforcement is. And that research can be a ride-along. It could be just, internet research on it. As far as training, I think people coming out of the service, it's a great transition. You're ahead of the game, hopefully, when it comes to tactics. And people in social working, I use that as an example, are coming out of college. You have not had the life experience other than college. But focusing on the maturity side, because I think another thing my mom would always say, where much is given, much is required.
Right.
As a police officer, you have the ability to take someone's freedom. You have the ability to put them in handcuffs. You have the ability to tell a grown man, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So where much is giving on that, much is required. You have to be mature. You have to be able to interact and speak with people at a tone that reflects a problem solving. Those are things that you have to do. College is also a thing that can help, but I look at departments nationwide and they're eliminating the college aspect. So a lot of my department is, you got to have I believe it's a steady work history for several years. Okay. And a high school diploma. So I think those are some really key aspects. If someone comes to me, is get an understanding of the job, get an understanding of the history of the job. It's interesting to see how many people don't know the history of law enforcement and how it came about. And I guess another thing to highlight my department is we just started a course that teaches officers that. How did policing start? How did it come about? And you'd be surprised how many officers had no clue.
Wow.
But I think that is crucial in 2022 to really focus on getting an understanding of the job and the history of the job.
Right. Absolutely. How important would you feel is communication as far as this profession? I get that question a lot.
Communication is your mouthpiece is the biggest tool. It's not your gun, it's not your taser, it's not your handcuffs. Your mouth is the biggest tool that you can have. I've probably talked myself out of fights. I've talked people way bigger than me into handcuffs because I can communicate. It is, oh my gosh, that is the biggest tool in law enforcement. Wow, that was a good question, but you said it always comes up. A commander used to say this to us all the time. What you do and how you do it matters. The how is important, very important, and how you communicate with people. If you get on a patrol car and you're already on 10, it's not going to go well. But with that being said, and I always have to bring it back to leadership, the same thing when it comes to you as a leader in your interaction with your officers, is how you do it. What you do and how you do it matters. How do you interact with your officers? How do you tell them about something, an issue that's come up? Do you beat down their self-esteem? Or do you encourage them? Is it a teachable moment or is it a beat down?
Right.
You know, teachable moments make great officers. Beat downs create officers to go into a shell and quiet quit. So communication is important to the community and as a leader to your officers.
And I see the two streams on Facebook are back up and running. I don't know what the issue was. So if you guys are on Facebook, make sure you tag, like, share, give me a thumbs up, give me a like, ask your questions if you're just now coming in. I know I don't know if it caught back up or I don't know if you're just jumping in now, but we're having a tremendous interview right now. So I'll give you a moment to gather your thoughts and let Sergeant Be Safe have his way right now. Stand by.
Hey, who is that? I see you there sneaking around.
Oh no!
What were you doing behind that building?
I was sneaking around.
Sneaking around, huh? What's your name? Haven't I seen you before?
My name is Bubba Bigfoot.
Do you mind taking your mask off? Aha! Just what I thought. I knew it was you, Chance Wilder. You shouldn't lie and give a fake name to the police. Now I'm gonna have to take you in.
I'm caught again.
I'm glad it wasn't me this time. It would have been a real bummer.
You should always be honest, upfront, and courteous when dealing with the police. Otherwise, it causes all sorts of other problems. Wild Chance is back off to jail.
Film pack. Film pack.
Subscribe now.
All right, and I see the Facebook crew is back on. I see Shayla loves that video. I know, I appreciate that. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please tag, like, and share. We're still here in the middle of the interview with Roger Collins. We learned a lot. We learned a lot about leadership. We learned a lot about community service. We learned a lot about mental health and how to identify it. We learned to discuss communication, how to be effective. So many different topics we discussed, and he's still right here backstage. If you guys have your questions, make sure you come with him. Roger, you still there?
I am.
Perfect. I want to ask you this. In the course of your career and the way as being a sergeant, being a commander, how do you feel that you make a positive difference in society, with your department, and with your troops?
Well, first, that's my prayer that I do. I don't want my service to be taken in vain. That's the goal. I know I make a difference because my officers still come up and tell me how they feel. They still interact with me, tell me about their sons or about their wife or about their daughter. They feel confident in coming and communicating with me when it comes to my officers. When it comes to the community, I always made it intentional to build those genuine relationships, consistent relationships. I have, the story that I always tell is there was a young boy whose mom unfortunately was addicted to narcotics, and he got abandoned at one of our substations. So it's the end of my shift. It's about 11:30, 12 o'clock when we're on the hybrid shift. And we had to take him to the hospital because he was born addicted. Okay. And I didn't get home till 3 o'clock that morning. I was supposed to get off around 12, 1 o'clock. And I'll never forget Holton, this baby. This baby now is 8 years old, I think. He just recently had a birthday. So because we stay in I stay in contact with his aunt, who ultimately gained custody of him.
Right.
But I remember coming home and going in my room, going to my daughter's room. At the time, we only had a daughter. Now we have 3 kids, as we've met one of them. And bringing my daughter into me and my wife's bedroom, and she woke up. She's like, "How did Tessa get in here?" And I was like, "Man, I needed Tessa more than Tessa needed me."
Yeah. Tonight,
after seeing this kid. And the impact is I still have a relationship with this kid. The kid still knows me. We've been to birthday parties. We go out to eat with them. When this adoption was finalized, we all celebrated together. That's impactful to them. But man, how impactful is that to me to realize what I am doing matters?
Yeah.
That is a visual example of what we do as police officers matters. So we're far from a time where we need to be quiet quitting. We're in a time where we need to double down and work on gaining the trust back with the community that we serve.
Like that. I like that. You hit the nail on the head with that one. Let me ask you, and as we soon close, I know we had a very fruitful discussion. In the course of the conversation, is there any question that I may have forgot to ask, or is there anything that may have triggered you and that you want to get out there and share or convey to us in the platform right now? The floor is yours.
I honestly just want to say, first of all, thank you for having me on here.
Absolutely.
My goal for being on this podcast is I want to be able to help law enforcement leaders, law enforcement personnel on making this profession better. I started a consulting company right after civil unrest. That's the shirt I'm wearing. It's called Modern Responders.
Gotcha.
Because policing is changing. We are no longer the same responders we were in 87, the 90s. Policing is different than it was 11 years ago when I first started. And quite frankly, it's changed in 2 years since I started the company. And so I want to be able to help law enforcement leaders engage their community the correct way and do it as a department strategy and not as an individual unit. And I also just want to make this profession, help rebrand this profession, as my chief would say, in a direction that it needs to go. So we go back to having 3,000 applicants for 20 spots.
Right.
Because whether people believe it or not, this profession is worthwhile. You can look behind me and see that my family thought it was really worthwhile. I just ask that if you have any questions, or if you would like me to come talk to your police department or your command staff or create strategies for your community policing, please look me up on LinkedIn. It's pretty much where I do most of my connections with at Roger Collins. The second I'm on LinkedIn. You'll see this mug there. And I would love to come help your police department with those particular areas. To also include recruitment and retention, as well as diversity, equity, inclusion on the side of policing. So it's been great. It's a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I'm very passionate about this.
Absolutely. You can see your passion coming through. Other than LinkedIn, do you have a website or anything that I can post in the comments if anyone wants to get a hold of you, or would you prefer them to reach out to you on LinkedIn?
I'm still working on the website. So I don't have the website up yet.
Okay.
It's in the process of being created. But LinkedIn, inbox on LinkedIn, my phone number and email address are also in my LinkedIn profile. So you can reach out by phone or through my email. And I would love the help. I'm just trying to make this place better.
Gotcha. And I think you will. I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on the platform and blessing this platform. It is very fun, very easy, and very informative interviewing you. And I look forward. Hopefully this won't be our last interaction. Hopefully I can get you on the platform again and we can discuss various topics on law enforcement. I hope everything, your goals come to fruition. I appreciate everything. I want you to enjoy the rest of your evening as well, since I know that you're just getting off a shift.
Yes, and this won't be the last. I'll definitely be back. I love doing this. This is what passionate enough that I can end this shift, come here and do this with energy and love. So
Perfect.
This won't be the last.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is another episode of Black and Blue. We go live weekly with an individual that works law enforcement in the United States of America that is either a rookie officer, seasoned officer, or retiree. And we go ahead and get those questions asked. We go ahead and learn about them, and we go ahead and get that situational taken care of. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for tuning in. Please tag, like, and share. Let the channel grow. Let this content still keep hitting every single platform that we can, so we can get that positive information out there. I want you to know that we love you. Be safe, and Sergeant Be Safe is going to end our stream here. Pay attention, stay tuned, and pay attention.
Hello, ma'am. Send me gift cards and your credit card numbers over the phone.
Once Chance Wilder gets all of her information, we're going on a shopping spree. I'm talking Gucci, Fendi, and Prada.
I'll send the police to your house.
You mean to tell me that if I don't send you my credit card numbers over the phone, you're gonna come to my house and arrest me?
Absolutely. I love shopping on Amazon Prime, especially when everything is free 99.
I can't believe people are so gullible.
Sergeant, be safe. You're right on time. Can you help me?
I sure can. Hello, Wild Chance.
Oh no, Sergeant,
That's right.
Be safe.
Never give out any credit card information over the phone.
I can't believe you led Be Safe right to us. Run, you fool.
Me? It isn't my fault. It was your idea.
You're caught and going back to jail. Remember, folks, don't buy gift cards and give that or credit card information over the phone, especially to a stranger. It could be Chance Wilder and his partner getting ready to rob you blind. Remember, take it from me, Sergeant Be Safe, and that'll be your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Subscribe now.